Alright, so today we're going to be changing the coil on my super tank. I got it running on my spark. I'm running some of that ice pops, some of that black cherry pineapple, which is fire. If you haven't tried it, try it now or tomorrow, I guess, maybe. Pretty basic stuff, changing and priming coils, but you know, I know I have a lot of customers that just came in every week when theirs was burnt out, or every couple of weeks, however it might have been, and they had us do it. Well, we can't do that anymore, just the same as we can't build coils for you guys. We can't really troubleshoot your mods for you anymore, so it's kind of on you. I figured, I know a lot of people are struggling with this part. They never really got how to prime it, why to prime it, especially with top fill tanks, how you want to fill them. Usually it's as simple as turning the juice flow control off. A lot of top fill tanks have that. If they don't, I just shut the airflow off. That's as simple as that. But that's what we're going through today, so I'll see you guys down in the close-ups and we'll get started. So in order to change your coil and prime it, really all you're going to need is your tank, your new coil, your juice, and your mod. I usually keep some Q-tips handy just in case I want to clean it out. Sometimes some juice gets down in there onto the 510, the contact down below the coil, and that'll cause some connection issues. It won't fire right. It'll be reading, you know, check atomizer or however. I'll go ahead and just clean that thing usually every other time that I change my coil, just to be safe. If anything, just to get the last flavor out of there that I was vaping to make it work well for my other one. So today we're going to do that super tank. I got the 0.2 ohm coil. It's the same for pretty much every coil out there on the market, so don't worry if you've got a different tank like the Crown or the Heracles, whatever else. And we're going to be running on my Sigelli Spark. I got that ice pops, black cherry pineapple. First thing we're going to do is obviously get the bottom with the coil attached off from our tank. I'm just going to set that guy there. We need to remove the coil from the base of the tank. Now this is our old guy. He either burnt out or just stopped vaping. Maybe you're getting some spit back. It's been sitting for too long. Whatever. This coil is no good. We're going to throw it. We're going to get our new coil. And I like to install it most of the way beforehand. Some tanks have, you know, little walls and things. Sometimes you need to prime the coil before you get into installing it, but super tank you can pretty much put the whole thing in there before you even prime the coil because there's nothing in the way. Now I'm going to take my juice, I'm going to get started priming it. So on pretty much every coil and every tank you've got these spots on the side somewhere that's going to be drinking juice here. So this is where the juice drinks into the coil in order to be vaporized, essentially. What you want to do is basically get all that cotton inside of the coil as saturated as you possibly can, you know, without overdoing it, so you're not pouring it all over the place. But before you even think about filling it up or putting it on your device or anything like that. This is called priming. That's pretty basic stuff, but it can be an art. So I'm going to take a little juice and put it on each of those little coil or each of those little juice wools. Just put a little dab on each of those. Kind of watch it drink it up real quick. Just get a little bit. You can always do another pass. And once I've hit all of those, at least once, I'm going to come to the top of the coil. So now you see you've got your coil down inside of here, and there's the cotton wrapped around it. So I'm just going to add the juice around the outside, kind of like circularly. Just try to hit that. I don't want to put too much down in the center, because that's going to end up down in the base of my tank and probably leak out the bottom or cause a lot of spit back. So you just kind of go around the outside. Try not to get too much down in the middle. And then once you've seen that, kind of drink that up, come back around, and if you want, you can add a little bit more on the outside. I like to usually do a good 2 passes on the outside part. Alright, now I'm ready to fill my tank. So I'm going to put the top back on. Get it nice and snug. As tight as I can get it, so I make sure it's making a good solid connection with everything inside of there, and it's not, leaking and causing any spit back. There's a good chance you probably got some juice on your hands. You can just wipe it. I usually keep some paper towel around just in case, but generally if you're not too worried about your pants, you're pretty good there. But now with the super tank, it's top fill. But that, when you have a bottom filled tank, obviously you're going to fill it and then just put the bottom on there upside down. You've probably filled your tank before, I imagine, but the eye just does. A lot of other tanks do, but I got a top fill here. So what I want to do is I'm going to close the airflow off just a little bit with the super tank. This is a little trick with top fill tanks. You kind of shut the airflow off to create a vacuum inside there so that it doesn't pour through the coil too much. You don't want it to get too saturated, otherwise you're leaking. And I know that's a problem with most top fill tanks. Now I'm going to fill her up. And you want to make sure, no matter what, if you can help it, you want to keep your tank full beyond the juice wells inside. So I've filled mine almost all the way to the top. As long as it's above the juice wells, you're good. You just want it to be above the coil so that it's drinking enough juice and not going dry. Now I'm going to put the top back on. And I'm going to open the airflow all the way back up so that the juice can start soaking into the coil. Now at this point, you should be ready to go, but you want to let it sit either way. Just to be safe, I usually go about 5-10 minutes before I even bother hitting it. There are a couple tricks to speed up the process. One is called burping or breathing, and that's where you, without firing it, pull air through the coil. And what that kind of does is create some suction in there, and it kind of pulls juice into the coil, without getting the coil hot at all. Something I've also done is I've kind of pulsed it from time to time, just barely firing it to see, how it sounds. I don't recommend this, just because generally, if you burn the coil, it's no good. Once you burn it, all the juice inside is going to taste burnt, even if you put a new coil in there, and pretty much it's not going to be a good experience. So you could just leave it sit, and usually you're pretty good after about 5 to 10 minutes if you've primed it. I do know some people who, they don't even prime them, they just fill them up and leave them sit overnight. I don't think that this works very well. I think I'd rather just prime the coil either way, especially if it's the middle of the day. I'm not going to be trying to wait 7 hours for this thing to fill up, and get nice and wet to hit it. I'm dying for my nicotine by that point, So, put it on here. Make sure everything's reading properly. Turn my device on. Okay. It's reading the coil. So, I'm going to turn it below where I think I'm going to fire it at. for the first few hits. Because whenever I've just primed a coil, even if I think I primed it really well, I filled the tank, I think everything's good, usually if I'm getting ready to hit it, I'm going to turn it down lower than I think I'm going to be firing at, just to get it kind of broken in with the first couple of hits. So I'm going to let that sit a little bit, and then I'll see you guys back in some FaceTime and we'll talk about it. So that's it. We got the coil changed in my super tank. Everything's vaping right. So obviously we did the right thing. Pretty much this same method applies to every other tank on the market, every other coil on the market. The only ones that I can think of that might have a little bit of a different method are the TFE4, TFE8 coils. Usually when I'm priming those, I do everything just twice, essentially. So I'm hitting all the juice wells twice. I'm hitting the top of the coil twice. And then I'm going to obviously just continue to do everything the same exact way. I usually let that one sit maybe 15-20 minutes, especially before I even think about running that tank about 120. I know a lot of those coils that are off of the TFE8s are optimal around like 140, 160. Don't even consider it at the first couple of hits. Take it way down. Take it down to 80, 70, 60. Try to get it to fire without taking it up so hot. Just like with RDAs, you know, you have little tiny dry spots in there, and those will burn, and they'll ruin the whole thing. So just be careful if you have the TFE8, TFE4s. Just make sure you're priming your coils well. I know those are expensive coils. You don't want to be wasting them. So other than that, I think pretty much that's that for coil priming and coil changing. If you got any questions, feel free to ask. You know, comment below the video. Ask any of your other Wild Bills, Mr. Vapor stores. That's it. NET Jet out.